So I'd like to say, like to give you guys a warm, everybody that's joining us today, a warm welcome. And I'm looking forward to discussing all the new features that are in 40 v18 R5. And today I'm gonna, so how this is gonna work, just really quickly, I'm gonna be presenting the features along with and Ricardo and Jim, if there are any commercial questions or things that we need to discuss. We're all here to support you with your questions. I'm gonna go over, and I are gonna go over each of these features. So 40 View Pro, Form Editor, 40 for iOS, 40 Write Pro, and then programming. And between each feature, after each feature, we will open the floor for Q&A. And I will ask you to put your Q&A in the chat, and I will read the question, and then we can go from there. As the Q&A is in the middle, I'm not going to be referring to anybody by their names. I will just be reading the questions. So listen for your questions, not necessarily your name. So with that aside, let's get started. So I'd like to talk a little bit about a recent blog post from the head of the PO team, and Mathieu, and this is the current Mac compatibility roadmap map. So the Mac OS platforms. So as you see, 18R5 is both certified on Big Sur Intel and Big Sur Silicon and the Rosetta Silicon, so the emulated silicon, but it's not supported for the Big Sur native silicon, nor will the 18R6 beta, which is currently in beta, be supported. On Big Sur, the first fully supported version is going to be v19 LTS as it stands right now. And as you see, there's an asterisk on that. Normally that would be coming out next year, but due to the fact that Apple has made a big change in their silicon, and we need a version, and if your customers need a version, we need to get you an LTS version to support the Big Sur native silicon. That means that we're going to be bringing in the v19 release into Q3. Okay. So if you haven't seen it now, it's been a big topic of discussion internally, and we finally decided, and we're now communicating it. The release cycle is currently on 40.com and in the blog post. So have a look at that. Oh, LTS is the dot release version. So someone asked to please define LTS, and LTS is the dot release version. So what we generally call, it stands for long-term support. Okay, so that's that point. Moving on. Any questions about that, I guess, before we start? No, okay. Now on to 40 View Pro. And 40 View Pro, as you all know, is the great way to get native spreadsheeting support into your 4D client server application. And it's built on, as you all know, it's built, as we discussed before, it's built on the robust Spread.js framework. And with each version, we add more and more features. So the current status is 40 View Pro is only in English. Now, one of the largest feature requests ever requested or ever upvoted was from you, the developers, and where you said that you needed to add local support of 40 View Pro in a variety of languages. So your clients demanded, you asked us, and we listened. And now you can have native support for 6 languages in the 40View Pro interface. And that's German, English, Spanish, French, Portuguese, and if it's not done right now, very soon, Japanese. So what does this mean for you? For the developer, it doesn't mean anything, right? Your end user can use it in their native languages. For your end user, it can mean a lot. Say, for example, your operating system is in one of the languages that's currently supported in the 40View Pro, internationalization, like French. Say your operating system is in French. When you load up your 40View Pro in a client form, it checks the system language and displays all of the elements of 40View Pro translated. That's the ribbon, that's the toolbar, that's the contextual menu, error messages, etc. So again, special thanks to those of you who are using 40View Pro and giving us feedback. It really helps us make the product what you need. So that was the 40View Pro discussion. And now we're going to go on to questions and answers. So someone asked, is that grid available online? So I'm assuming that you're talking about the Mac compatibility grid. And yes, it is on the blog and it's in the blog. I pulled that grid from the blog. So yes, it is available online. And on 40.com, you also have the current release cycle. So that should answer that question. It's arrived, done. So okay.
Will, there's the question that come into chat, I think.
Yeah, so I'm seeing things in the chat in the Q&A. So someone asked, does 40View Pro require a separate license like 40 Write? The answer is yes. It does require a special license. If you currently have a 40View license, your 40View Pro, that's the same as your 40View Pro license. But if you're not using 40View or 40View Pro, you require a license. Okay. Someone asked, maybe this is, you now have var statements. What about non-mutable variants like constant or let? Ad, do you want to?
Sorry, I can't see the question from here.
In the chat.
So, yeah, the chat.
Are you a panelist?
Sorry, well, yeah, I'm not apparently. So can you repeat that question again?
So 40 now has var statements. What about non-mutable variables like constant or let?
For everything else that is currently you see here or in the current version is probably subject to go under study. I know that there are plan to keep expanding 40 language to make sure that it supports some of the format and programming style in a modern way. So I would suggest that you file this as a feature request because of what our team would like to know is if there are more people are demanding this type of feature or even how to declare variable in a different ways. So definitely, I don't know of a plan currently being worked on for these two, but I would suggest that you go to the forums and file a formal feature request for it.
Okay, thanks, Tad. And someone else asks, are we currently testing internally with M1? What kind of performance are we seeing? I have heard anecdotally that we are testing with it internally. And I have heard anecdotally that it's very fast, but that's all I have right now. Again, that's it. If you have a question, that's for the R&D. So M1 is the Mac silicon. And so that is a question. If you have a question for the 4D R&D team and you're interested in seeing the process, we are doing regular blog posts about that. And if you do have a specific question, feel free to reach out to the developers in discuss.4d.com. They read that, especially the product owners read that. So someone else. Someone asked before, Ad, are you a, one second, Ad, are you a part, are you a, you talking is permitted, okay. Can I make you a panelist, Ad?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm doing that right now. So you can see these questions. So someone asked, before the native support, is there any assurance of 18.x not corrupting data?
Well, I giggle because of the data corruption can be caused by many things, right? Power outage, an interrupt in your operation, your application shut down unexpectedly. So to guarantee 100% that is never going to corrupt, or even for the intentionally corrupt the data file, that's kind of I wouldn't even call that the right assessment, because there's something that happened unexpectedly. So what usually we're trying to do is to think of a way to minimize any possibility of data corruption, or even trying to make additional improvement to the MSC to make sure that while we are dealing with the corruption, we have a way to recover it in the way that allowing you to go back to the most stable state of your data file. But yeah, it's just not really we can't really give you a guarantee or a real assurance that it's never going to happen, right?
Okay, thank you. And someone asked, is what we're talking about available in Windows 10?
Are you referring to
Is 18R5, I think is 18R5 compatible, certified on Windows 10?
I would assume so, yeah.
Me too, okay. So yes, that's it, that's a yes. Okay. Thank you very much. No, thank you very much for the questions. Keep them coming. I'm going to mark these as done. So someone asked about data corruption. When and where is this happening? So I think, I'm not sure, there's no known area for data corruption that I know of right now. I don't know. I mean, Ad, maybe you can talk a little bit about it, but
I mean, like I said, the data corruption, when it happens, right, is the aftermath. What you're dealing with is a data that's already been corrupted. Knowing exactly where it caused the corruption, or even finding out the source of the corruption. I mean, like I said, 4D, as 4D operates throughout the day or months, the way that it behaves, we always don't want the data to be corrupted. So the way the 4D operates, we have a full confidence that 4D is not the cause of the corruption in many ways. Now there could be a case where the corruption is is happening when certain procedures performed, but those are really unique into case by case, right? Now, earlier I mentioned a power outage or any interruption in the operation or a shutdown unexpectedly. Those type of things could potentially cause your data to be corrupted because information that are in the cache may not have a chance to get flushed to the disk. Everything gets killed, unexpectedly. So those could be the situation that the data could be corrupted. But in terms of 4D itself, when and where it's going to cause data corruption, I can never say or tell you exactly where, or even there's a place for it inside of 4D.
So data corruption so someone asked, is data corruption being discussed because people are reporting data corruption? The answer is no. That's not what's happening. Someone asked a question about data corruption, and we're responding that question about data corruption. There's no specific reason we're discussing data corruption with respect to 18R5 right now.
Okay.
And yes, so
But again, we could continue this data corruption in a different avenue. I think the forum might be the best place. Let's try to stay within the context of 4D View Pro at this point, just to make sure that we move along.
So sorry if we scared anybody about that, but so that's where we're at. So yeah, let's keep on topic. So if there are no more questions about 4D View Pro or Mac compatibility, I will keep on rolling on. And the next thing we're going to talk about is 4D Write Pro. So 4D Write Pro, so as you know, with each new R release, new possibilities. So the current status, if you're using 4D Write Pro in your application and you're using the either toolbar widget above or the widget bar on the side, is you have a lot of features in there. But say, for example, you're using the light email client that we talked about. You don't need all those features, really. You don't need to send an email. You generally don't need a light email. You don't need to have bookmarking capabilities or locking capabilities. So people asked for the ability to kind of to pare down the features offered in the widget, and so we've done that. So now you're able to define exactly what you need to be displayed for your end user in each widget instance on the fly. So for example, here we have a look at the demo. So we have the widget, we have the 4D Write Pro, we have the widget, we've got all sorts of things that may or may not be there. We can update the tabs on the fly, and that changes which widgets are being actually displayed in the application. So pretty cool. And that's it for the 4D Write Pro features that we're going to be highlighting today. And again, any questions? And I will open up the Q&A. And I will open up the chat. Okay.
So Ed was asking, are we going to talk about what's new in 18R5? Yes, I think that's what we are doing right now.
I think that's a question that came from the corruption.
Oh, okay, all right.
So someone asked, is there a plan to have 4D Write Pro to save an MS Word document? Yes, that's already in the product. So Oh, open MS Word. Yes, that's being worked on. So that's currently being worked on. So in the forum, there's recently been a post from Matthew where he talked about that in the progress of it. So yes, you will be able to open up Microsoft Word documents in 4D Write Pro. Okay. Someone asked, what is anticipated for R19, if you don't mind? Well, so I guess v19 will be all of the features of v18 plus all of the features of v18, the R series, and then and just all together. So it'll be the with support for native Mac, the native Mac ARM CPU. So as we're getting towards the end of the 18R release cycle, we are starting to see how v19 is going to be looking. So all of these features are going to be in v19. They're currently not in the 18L LTS cycle, but they're in the R cycle, so they're all going to be in v19. So that's what we're looking at. So these features that I presented last time, the features I've presented last time, the features I'll be presenting today, and the features and the features of R6 and R7 will be v19. I can't say anything more because I don't want to engage. I don't want to say I can't read the future, and I don't know what will be ready exactly for v19, but I know that these features will be there.
So one thing to find out what's coming also is through the documentation website. If you go to LiveDoc, there's always a beta section where you can find out what's new in that version, at least give you a quick preview of what's to come.
Mm-hmm. And someone asked, can you save, thanks Ed, yeah. So someone asked, can you save 40View Pro in an Excel native document? And yes, you can. Yes. You have been able to do that for a long time. So anything, so she said, so back to the v19 question. The v19 question is everything in the R release cycle plus new Mac, the support for native new Mac ARM CPU. That's all I can say right now. So someone asked, I thought the roadmap was following R6 was the next version, not an R7. So that's a good question. So with the onset of, with the bringing in of the LTS cycle, we moved our dot release cycle from 18 to 24 months. This is that, so that's what that means. So theoretically you could have 18, however it works out, you have as many R cycles to cover the 24 months. Since we will be releasing 19 early in support of the native Mac silicon, we will be cutting the R cycle short that amount. So to answer your question, R6, following R6 version used to be the next LTS version, but now that has changed since v18's release and since we discussed that last year. So, second, that's been answered. And then, so someone said, I thought the LTS release cycle was going to be 24 months as opposed to the previous 18 months. So instead of 6 R releases, that would be 8 R releases. It seems as if v19 is going to be released instead of R8 with R7. So yes, 7 is before 8. Therefore, it is the early. So someone asked what R numbers are going to recur after R6. Again, Okay, so I don't know what the future will hold, normally it should be 18R7 would be v19. So 18R6 may be the last version, it seems, at the moment, as of today. But yeah.
The plan moving forward is R6 will be the last R release before the the LTS release, which is V19. It's going to be the same thing for version 19R. So we could have, we will have R2, R3, R4 up to R6 of version 19, and then the following will be the another LTS version release.
Okay. And then someone asks, someone asked about native M1, and I will again direct you to the blog to find out much more information that I will be able to give you about that today.
Okay. Any other questions about 4D Write Pro?
Or an okay.
All right.
So now onto the form editor. So many developers already use the advantages of project mode, and we're working to make this better and better with each R release. So prior to 18R5, for example, in ads, well, this is in ads summit presentation, if you were using CSS files to define the look and feel of your 4D forms, in order to view the CSS file, if you made a change in your CSS file, in order to see how that would actually change the look and feel of your form, you needed to run the form. You were, I guess all I'm saying is you were unable to have a preview of what your CSS file, you were unable to see the impact of your CSS file in the form editor itself. Now with 18R5, you are able to render a preview of your CSS files in 18R4. And this difficulty created a lot of buzz in the forums and frankly was a blocking point for many developers to move to project mode. So now I'm happy to say that it's available, and we can have a quick look to see how it works exactly. So here we have a form, and here we have the property list, and let's have a look at so we have some text, and it's being driven by a CSS, and it's just normal. So, and then we can see how it would render in a Mac using that signal, using that symbol, and then go to Windows itself. And as you see, it can change. And down here, maybe you want to have a CSS file define the look and feel of an icon. That's exactly how that's being done between Mac and Windows. You can have the Mac icon, you can have the Windows icon. I'm running this in a Mac, so that's what it looks like in a Mac. So, super cool. And if you're a fan of simplifying repetitive tasks or looking for a way to make your form development more consistent, then 18R5 is really for you. We have introduced the idea of form macros to help you with this. So in 18R5 in your project, you see you'll have a new file called formmacros.json in your project folder. And you're able to define all sorts of different ways that you would interact maybe in a daily basis with a 4D application, creation of buttons, etc. So let's have a look to see how the demo actually works. So here we have a form running in 18R5, and when I right-click in the form, I see the macros, and I can make a hello world button, right? It's act like a normal button. It does everything to make a hello world button. And then it says hello world, right? And now I want to set the text red because I do that all the time on things. So I have a macro to set the text red. And when I render it, the text of the button is red. And that's what it does. And if you follow the forum, Thomas Small had a really interesting use case of macros, and that's doing all of the work in order to create a for-state button from a flat button file. So have a look at the forum to see how Thomas Small did that, and he provided you with a sample demo database. So any questions about anything that we've discussed so far, or the form editor updates? Someone maybe put in the chat. Are form macros available in binary mode? I do not think so.
No, this is available only in project mode.
Project mode. Someone asked, what happened to the list box builder button?
It's there. If you are launching your project application, it should be listed. In this video, the property list is covering it, but it's right on the top right corner.
Near the widgets.
Yeah.
So good question. Glad you're using that. So what happened to the list box builder button? So someone asks, what is the extent of things that can be done in form editor macro? Can existing objects be resized, properties change, multiple objects created and named, example radio buttons and form set events? So in order to, you can do a lot with macros. And I recommend, if you really want to learn, if it sounds like a cool thing for you, I'd recommend going to developer.40.com and really digging into the documentation on how it's being used and how you can use it. It's a complicated it can become pretty complicated pretty quickly, the documentation, so we can see you should be able to do anything that you do in the form. You should be able to use a macro to do it.
Yes, similar to the form editor, the method editor macros, you basically can manipulate some contents, also insert. Most of the time you can think of macro as you execute certain code that you have to perform task. So whether it's going to populate a buttons or create some kind of widget that be added to the form, or manipulate something on the form itself, you could do so.
Okay. Any other CSS questions? Can a component have a form macro that is available to a host? I believe that it can. It says it directly in it's one of the first lines in the developer.40.com documentation. So again, for these specific questions, I definitely recommend going to developer.40.com. And if you still have a question, discuss.40.com is a very good place to do it. So someone asked, how complete is CSS support? I did not find a comprehensive list of supported values.
There are a handful of CSS attributes that we do support. It's not a full-blown CSS feature. Now, the CSS support in 4D is within the context of 4D rendering. So you'll see that we adopt some of the basic attributes that commonly used in the web project into the 4D form. Along with that, we added some of the 4D form attributes to make sure that it blends into the CSS feature within the 4D. So no, it's not a full CSS support or you know, as you expect with the web rendering. But you could, you know, I did a video that talks about it via event.4d.com, which is the Summit digital experience. You can watch the videos, you can download the document that goes along with it. I documented whatever we support at that time. Again, with this whole conversation about the preview and the rendering of the CSS directly in the form method. This is something new. I know I made it such a big deal about it in my video that it's not supported, but because you know many of you have requested it, voice your opinion, we decided, well, it's a good thing that we need to do this. That's where we added into 18 R5.
Thanks, Ed. Okay. And someone asked if what the 2021 summit's going to look like. Let's take that off the side. I don't know. I can't see the future, to be honest. So I have no idea what 2021 will bring, or 2022 for the summit. So now, if there are no more questions about CSS, now on to 4D for iOS. So 4D for iOS is an awesome tool, and we're starting to have our first actual deployed applications on it. A lot of people have discussed about 4D for iOS to see if it's right for them, and I continue to think about use cases. It's a really great and simple, a really great and intuitive way to extend certain functionalities of your 4D application to a mobile device. So, so now onto the sync. Prior to R5, the whole data set was being pulled from the server to the local data set on the phone. And to get this got the job done whenever, so that happened whenever it needed to sync. And this got the job done, but we knew we could do better. So what we did is we completely rewrote the data sync mechanism in R5. Now, whenever the data needs to be synced in the local data set, for example, when you're putting the application into the foreground, launching the application, or by it being triggered in the server code, only the updated, newly created, and newly removed records get updated in the local data set. And this allows for a 25 times faster sync. Okay. And now, so have you ever got an email from Netflix asking if you want to continue watching a movie you stopped partway through? In that email, there's generally a link. And if you click that link, it doesn't just take you to netflix.com, but it takes you to the film that you're watching and then the exact location that you're watching. And that's deep linking. And you can use it now in your 4D application. And this is how it all works. So you have a contacts database, okay? So you have your contacts database, and say you want to share one contact with another person. You click your 3 buttons in the action, you click share. you click share via email, it opens up the message, you send it to someone with a topic. For example, deep linking. You send the email gets sent, it gets received over here at this other person. They receive a link with the deep link, and then it takes them directly to the location of where the application is. So that's how the whole thing works. And as it's done in 40 for iOS, it's done in the simplest way possible. And as this is kind of a deep subject, I recommend, if you're interested in learning about how the deep linking works and various mechanisms to do deep linking, to visit the extensive 40 for iOS documentation on developer.40.com. So that's 40 for iOS. So someone asked, is the 40 for iOS API available if one does not want to stay within the limits of 40 for iOS, such as iPad, Apple TV, and iWatch support?
Good question. I don't have an answer for that.
I would say, I mean, we can discuss, if you have a specific question about an application that you would like to discuss, we can discuss it. 40 for iOS does work for iPad. It just needs to, it will work on the iPad, okay, as it is iOS. But I think that's a deep question that we would need to discuss, and for your thing, for your specific use case. So let's, if you want, please reach out to me and we can talk about that offline. But as it stands right now, 40 for iOS is an application for extending your business application to a mobile or handheld device. Someone asked, any plans for Android? I cannot.
You see the reluctance. We can't discuss the Android support right now. All we can say right now is that stay tuned. We have discussed this among our team and engineering, and we realize how important it is to also get Android support into the feature set. So just stay tuned. We are still working on it, trying to come up with the best option and plan ahead.
Okay. Yeah, and someone made the joke, wouldn't that be 40 for Android? And yes, probably. We would not call it 40 for iOS. That wouldn't make much sense. Very astute. Someone asked, when a deep link is clicked by the recipient, what level of access does the recipient have in the database? And I would venture to say it would have the access to so the person accesses the application in the same way the second person accesses the application through their view of the application. So they would have whatever access they would be allowed to have.
Right. So if the recipient has the application installed, it will automatically opens up the application and goes directly to the target location. Similar to when you open up something like Facebook and someone send a link, share something that comes from Facebook, for example, it does open up the Facebook application to that particular location, or or Netflix or anything else. So you have to have the application installed at the recipient device.
Okay. Okay. I think that answers that question. So thank you all for the questions. And if there's anything else, I'm going to look at the chat really quickly. Nothing in the chat. One more Q&A. What is the best way to know an update to R5 has been pushed? Is the latest build of R5 updated on the product download page under feature release? Yes. Correct, Ad?
Sorry. What's the best way to know the update? It's been pushed. Are you referring to the download of your application, or I'm not sure. Again, this is sort of outside of the context of the 44 iOS questions. I'm happy to answer this offline or in a different context, but let's keep rolling with the question with 45 iOS.
And I see that the people are still asking a lot of questions about 18 LTS. I would really, I think we've responded. We can ask a question. You can reach out to your account manager or even reach out to discuss.40.com so we can hash out the information with you. But in the sake of everybody's time, let's not do that here.
Okay.
Okay. So now onto the programming enhancements, which are quite a few. So, normally, so up to 18R5, this is how you would make a simple method that takes in two parameters and has a result. So here I say for San Francisco, we have 8.5% base sales tax, send it out, okay? So as you see, you have 1 through N in your $1 through $N is your input parameters, and sometimes a $0. But using that in another method doesn't always, you don't always know what you need to put into your app, to your method. Well, you don't always know your method signature and what $1 is, what $2 is, etc. So it's a little bit, it can be a little bit confusing to, without having to reread the method to remember exactly the ordering of it. So the ordering of the parameters of the signature. So there's been a major change in the way in which you can declare your variables. And that's with the $ or the hash declare. So in the hash declare, you're able to declare the exact signature of the method that you're writing in a way that's very readable, and also a way that the 40 will be able to determine how you use it in the status bar. I'll show you that a little bit later. But so here we declare, you have 2 inputs, and here's your signature of this method. 2 inputs, county, which is a text, amount, which is a real, and you're going to return a result, which is going to be a real. And then I just directly go and start using the declared variables above, and it does all the $1, $2 for me. So a little bit more succinct, and it's a very nice and nice looking way. And there are benefits, other benefits to do that later. So, and this new, you can use declare in your project methods, your database methods, constructors of a class, and functions of a class. Okay. So for example, here's another example of a class constructor. Takes in first name, last name, birthday, text, and a date, and a function of that class. Maybe you can set the address. And that address can be a street number, street name, and city, text, 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 etc. And why this is interesting to do this way is in the method editor, when you go to use that information, as you see underneath in this looping, in this GIF, you'll see exactly what the signature looks like and what you need to put in and what each $1, $2, $3 actually are. See, first name, text, last name, text, and city. So really cool. And just in testing, I think that if you use declare for a method, it doesn't tell you as it stands in 18R5, there is a bug, and it doesn't give you all of the, it doesn't give you the variable name as defined in the declare statement. It only gives you the variable type in the signature status bar. So that's something that's going to be fixed in 18R6. So that's that. And and this is, so up to now, running your application as a service was an option, but debugging it was not always a simple task. You didn't have access to the great debugger that's offered by 4D. And now in 18R5 you can. From a client, you're able to run the debugger to debug your service. So if you want to, I can say that in a different way. 18R5 allows you to debug server code from the client. So that's big. So those are the enhancements in the programming language. So any questions?
So can you, there's a question about optional variables. Can you display optional variables? Is this similar to the comment in the documentation page for the function? The way that we lay out the syntax in the documentation is sort of for a readability format. Now, in 4D itself, it does not show that, obviously, for the purpose of programming. The one thing that we did not show was the ability to display a method, for example, the project method that you created using declare, hashtag declare your variables. It will display a similar way as you'll see earlier from Will's example with the function. Just to give you a heads up, there's some issues. There's a bug in version R5 right now that it does not display the full text of your declare statement from a project method. It is already addressed in the R6 and then the nightly build. So hopefully those versions will become available later. So just in case you run into the similar situation and you happen to be wondering if it actually does support project method or not, but it will be there.
Hello?
Yep.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay, so someone asked me to display the, okay. So that was responded to, so deep.
So there's another question about the debugger. The debugging from the client when 4D is running as a service on the server is only for non-compiled databases, correct? Yes.
Yes. Wait. As running the debugging from the client when a 4D is running as a service on a server is for non-compiled databases, correct? Is that true, Ed?
It is correct.
It is correct. So if you have a compiled database, you're unable to run the debugger.
Yeah, you could never do that in the first place.
Mm-hmm. So yes. Okay. Someone asked what the function signature is. The function signature is the name of the, it's a computer science term. It's the name of the method, function, the parameters needed, and its result. So it's, and as you see, it's down here, set address, street number, text, or get full name, returns full name, and that's a text, etc. So that's what I mean by function signature. So will we ever see identifiers in the language that support more than 31 characters in length? Again, I'm not sure, but if this is a feature request, we recommend you put that feature request into the forum.
Okay, here's another question. Service debugging related. Where is it? Where is this documented? Are there any limitations based on service account privilege? So very good question, because the documentation, I believe, is already available on developer.40.com, as well as there's a part of it's a blog post that is available now on blogs.40.com. In terms of the privilege, it depends on how you are running your application. First of all, to be able to run your application as a service, you have to, on Windows, you have to run as the administrator. So once you are running as the administrator, your client obviously has to run on the same, if you're running your project application, you have to run it on the same machine. Now, your client will be able to attach your debugger to the server and will be able to go through all of your debugging code in the debugger. So the privilege itself to the application, at least for the application, doesn't really need to be administrator. You can run it as your normal user, or you can even launch it fully as the administrator. It depends on what you want. But normally, when you launch your application, it uses whatever the current user is, and you'll be able to have access to the debugger and debug your code without having to grant permission or special privilege to it.
So thanks, Adam. So Kurt, someone says, a caveat about declare is that the named parameters are not initialized. So if you don't pass the parameter, the named variable, so if you don't pass a parameter, the named variable is undefined. This means you still have to use count parameters to verify the exact values are defined. And I recommend playing with this to see how it works and to review the documentation. So thank you for that discussion.
It's always nice, a good way to make sure that all of your parameters are passed into your method. Again, count parameters is the option that we often resource to. But in terms of the actual usability of the declare and the new way to declare your parameter, it just, it helps a lot. Means that you don't have to now set, what I usually do is have an if and else statement. If the parameter count is for a certain number, then I will assign that parameter directly to a variable, which is a local variable. Otherwise, I could even set a particular value to it. So this kind of a lessen the number of code that you have to put in your method.
Look at the next one, Ad.
Okay, let's see, which one are we now? Looks like the feature has been asked for the last 10 years. Well,
oh, oh, you don't see the ones I removed. Oh, okay.
Does the compiler enforce types in function signature, or is it more of a hint for developers? It is sort of a hint. So when you type in a 4D command, for example, when you hover your mouse over a command, or even look at the bottom of the method editor, you get a clear definition or syntax of that command that you can use. So this is sort of the same idea. When you define your method with a clear name of your parameter, you know exactly what it does, what it's supposed to receive, rather than $1, $2, which is, if you don't know that method well enough, you have to go inside the method and find out what it does, versus, it's already there, allowing you to see it. So this is for developer hint.
And then someone asked, can 4D server run headless on Mac OS, or is this a Windows only feature?
That's a very good question, because at one point I was planning to explore that thing. I don't have an answer for you. I know it does for Windows for many, many years now. This is something that I have to get back to you guys on this. I don't have an answer.
Someone asked, is that debugger only for Windows servers?
No. Now, you can debug from a 4D remote, whether you're running binary or project. But as we know, in order for you to access your application, your source code, or do any kind of debugging through project mode, your 4D remote must run on the server machine. It means that your client is the Windows, right? Now, if you're running everything in binary, it doesn't really matter whether your 4D remote is running from a Mac or a PC. So you can attach your 4D remote from any of the clients. The catch is you can only attach one 4D debugger, one 4D remote at a time. So if the second client or second 4D remote would like to acquire that access, the first client has to release itself first. There's an option that allows you to detach yourself, allowing other people to do so.
Thanks, Al. Okay. So, you may have noticed all of this information comes from the blog, and that's where I go to read all what's going on for the latest release. And if you're a partner, well, you can always read what's going to be coming in R6 in the blog. And if you're a partner, you can start to test with it with your beta releases, with the beta releases that are available to partners. And those are available on the forum. And so I highly recommend checking the blog regularly, as there's always new content, and it's always very good content, I feel. So, and then again, I mentioned it a lot today, but there on the forum, I highly recommend reading the forum and asking your questions on the forum. The forum is read by all of the members of the US 4D team, international team, and all the members of the R&D team, especially the product owners. So if you have a question about a specific use case, feel free to put it in there, and we should be able to get you a good, sorry, we should be able to get you will be able to get all of the eyes on your question. So please, and again, if you do have a feature request or a request for enhancement, we recommend that you put those in the feature request forum. Then they get upvoted, and then we are able to take the most requested feature requests in there. And if your feature request is upvoted and we implement it, maybe you're going to hear Ad and I present it in a future feature release webinar. And just a quick point, we still have a few seats available for JPR's advanced training, I believe. This training will be held from September 2nd through the 5th. And this was the training, a little bit more adapted, a little bit more up to date than the summit, but it's the training that was going to be held at the summit with the evolutions of 4D in it. So if you want to know how to use the latest and greatest in 4D in your application, reserve your spot today. And if you're not on 18R5 or 18 at all, there's no need to fear. We are still offering the free V18 preparedness report. What that is we get your application source code, your plugins, your components, and we have a review. Our team, our professional services team, reviews the application and tells you what you need to get your application up to 18. And if you're on 32-bit, we'll tell you how to get to 64-bit and what you need to do. So I just want to say thank you all, and I'm going to have a look at the questions. Just a quick note, someone asked if these slides will be available after the Zoom meeting. I believe so. We can send out a link to the slides, of course. You can upload them. Also, all of this information is in the blog, and I think that's probably an even better place than my slides to look at that, because you'll have how do I's, you'll have more in-depth discussions, and you'll have written by the creators themselves. So I just want to say thank you all for joining. Thank you all for your great questions, and I hope to talk with you all soon. And I'm going to have a look. I'm going to have a look at the questions to see if there are any other ones. So someone asked, will there be any difference in R5? I'm currently on R3 related to building the OEM. On Mac, any change? On Mac, any change to the signing of the application? On Windows, adding the server client update on Mac.
The building process, there shouldn't be any difference. It should be exactly the same. Okay. The difference would be the source of your application, which is instead of R3, it will be R5.
And so that should answer that question. So is it worth mentioning that no web server license is required to access the web debugger? Sorry, my cat is scratching.
Anytime that you're using a web feature in 4D, whether it's the web, normal web license or the web feature that comes from a component, right? Those feature requires the license on its own. Now, I think there's a difference in terms of running on the same machine. Again, this is something that I'm not quite sure of what the answer is. There might be a difference in terms of running on the same machine that you may not need a web license.
So let's take that offline. Maybe we need to get back to you on that, Jerome. Okay. And any other questions about the features that were presented today? or R5 in general? Someone asked, can we please leave the Q&A portion in the webinar video you distribute later? Yes, we will leave the Q&A portion. I didn't say names for that very reason. So just to respect people's anonymity. Thank you. So, okay, well, if that's it, if not, feel free, if you have any further questions about R5, you'd like to get in touch with Ad or myself to discuss anything about the current feature. And then if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to your account representative, your account manager, and we will respond accordingly. So thank you very much, everybody. I'll see you in about 3 months for the 18R6 webinar. All right, everybody, take care.